Patrons, what's up? Today is my first vlog. Normally, I'm going to do my vlogs probably informally and on the patio or something. But today, since I had everything set up, I figured I would do my first vlog. My first vlog, and they're all going to be just random topics. So today's vlog is about Jeffrey Dahmer. Some of you may have noticed that on Netflix there is a series that is all about the life and times of Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, the role is played by Evan Peters. And I like Evan because Evan is in American Horror Story. And I like him. Great actor. But before I get into that, let me give you the first part that I think is important before I start rambling. A lot of people decided not to watch this movie, or they have issues with this movie. And I'll tell you why. Number one, because Jeffrey Dahmer's victims, he was a serial killer who was a cannibal. And his victims, their families, obviously are mostly still alive because this happened in the 90s. And they were, from what they're saying, I don't know the specifics of this, but it's being reported that the family was not asked or notified anything about this particular Netflix series on this murderer. And it's based on the actual events. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but I do know it's based on the actual events because I've heard true crime channels cover this particular case before, and a lot of the information was similar or exactly the same. So I just want to put that out there that some people have chosen not to watch it or take issue with it because of that. Now, I do personally think they should have talked to the families before. Even if they were going to do it anyway, they could have at least told them. From what I understand, if you're going to do a movie about somebody or about their life or whatever, you don't have to. But I think it's a courtesy, right? So anyway, let me tell you about it. So since some of you may watch it, I won't give any major spoilers. All I'm going to tell you is my opinion about it. I really enjoyed Evan's performance. Also, Molly Ringwald was in this, okay? Now, this is a gruesome documentary. No two ways about it. It's gruesome. The facts of the case are gross. They didn't show a lot. It's a series, not a documentary. It's a series. They didn't show a lot, but they showed enough that it was disturbing. Put it like that. So it was so good to see Molly Ringwald. That was like one of the happiest moments for me in the whole series because I haven't seen Molly Ringwald since the 80s when she did The Breakfast Club, So to see her, she's all grown up and, I was like, wow, Molly Ringwald, So that part was cool. But that was probably the only part. The rest of it was very disturbing. And the one thing I'm going to tell you that I noticed, somebody asked me, why did I think he turned into this gruesome monster? What did it? Like, what part of, his upbringing? And from what I saw in the series is two things I think turned him into what he is. Number one, in utero, while his mother was pregnant, she was taking 27 different pharmaceutical drugs every day, according to her husband. She has something for constipation, something for anxiety, something for depression, something for this, something for that. And he said she was taking literally 27 pills a day. Now, Jeffrey was born in 1960. So we didn't know in the 1960s as much about the effects in utero as we probably do now. So maybe, the doctor, whoever was prescribing these things, didn't understand. But now we know that a lot of these pharmaceutical drugs can affect the baby. So I think that was the first thing. The second thing was the father. The father said two things that I think contributed to Jeffrey becoming a monster. The first thing is Jeffrey's father said that he himself had thoughts of blowing people up and killing them. So this could have been something that was, mental, that, was hereditary is what I'm saying. Then the father taught Jeffrey as a child how to do taxidermy. Taxidermy, for those of y'all who aren't familiar with the term, is when you take a dead animal, and basically you take all of the insides of it out, real gross, I know, and you stuff it with cotton or something. Sometimes you'll see these people having like a moose head on their wall, trophy or something like that. Or they might get their family pet stuffed or something like that. You can literally do this. It's called taxidermy. And it's very popular. When I was younger, it was popular amongst like hunters and people like that. But I don't really see it like in the, in the big city or something like that. Well, him and his father started getting roadkill and taking everything out of it and stuffing them, taxidermy. So his father was the one that introduced him to this. Jeffrey was into, science, and he liked stuff like that. So his father introduced him to this. And he did it as a means of bonding with the boy. But I think that maybe doing that, along with his mental illness and the problems that he was having, I think it all just was too much. I think that's what the problem was. Those three things. So basically, Jeffrey murdered all these people. One of his victims, they did, in the series, one of the episodes, they went in detail about one of his victims. His name was Anthony Hughes. They called him Tony. And my heart broke. Anthony was gay, he was black, and he was deaf. And he was a model. He was very interesting. He was trying to, break into the, show business. And when they talked about his life and his mom and his family, he was close to his family. His sister was pregnant when he was murdered. It was awful. It was awful. I felt so bad for him and his family. And the whole time that I'm watching it, I'm like, don't kill him. Don't kill him. I was like screaming at the TV, like, don't kill him. Don't kill him, Jeffrey. Please, not this one, Jeffrey. Please, not another one. And every time I thought that, the poor person ended up dead. There was only one person that escaped, and this is how Jeffrey was found out. Now, the other problem I have with this, and I've heard a lot of people in the black and brown communities talk about this, was that Jeffrey was, I ain't gonna say he was allowed, but Jeffrey got away with this. And he got away with it for a long time. And a lot of people say this because the neighborhood Jeffrey lived in was predominantly black and brown people. And these areas are often over-policed, but not as far as being victims. They're often over-policed as far as like drugs or looking for illegal activities. But something like, mass murder, serial killer can get away with something like this and go unnoticed. Jeffrey basically went unnoticed. And the people who kept on, his neighbor, who kept on complaining about him, because people said they could tell something wasn't right. The smells that were coming out of the apartment, the noises that were coming, they were calling the superintendent, they were calling the police, and they went ignored. Can you imagine your next door neighbor is a serial killer who's cutting up bodies next door to you, and you're calling the police, you're calling the super, and they're not doing anything about it? Like, are you serious? At one point, one of his victims escaped, literally escaped. But the boy, it was a young guy too. Jeffrey's crimes were all mostly against black and brown people. It was some people that were some white guys too, but they were all men from what I remember, and many of them were black or brown, and a couple of them were like 14 years old, not even grown men. And one of them, he lured by telling him he was going to pay him because his family was poor. And he lured him up to his place and did some experiment on him. Basically, I won't go into details, but he did something to him, his brain. And so the boy was like, the effect was that he felt drunk and confused, and he escapes, and the cops are called and give him back to Jeffrey. Jeffrey tells him it's his boyfriend. He's just drunk. It's no big deal. Let me just take him inside. And Jeffrey was able to talk the cops into allowing him to take the boy back inside. And when the cops were reprimanded, their union stuck up for them and got them their jobs back. So they're still probably, I don't know if they're still cops now, but they got awards They got awards for Cop of the Year. Like, what a slap in the face to those families. I mean, this whole case, the way that the Milwaukee Police Department dealt with it, it was just awful. It was awful. I mean, I don't know if it was because of the times, because they lived in an impoverished neighborhood, if it was because it was mostly people of color. I don't know what it was, but this police department really fumbled this case. If you watch the series, it's like, you gave him back to him? Like, I don't even understand how that happens. The next door neighbor was telling him this is clearly a child. The next door neighbor also continued to call the same cop to follow up, and they told her everything is fine. Oh, don't worry about it. Everything is good. No, he's not a child. He's 19 years old. Jeffrey said he's 19. Jeffrey would tell you anything right now. It was awful, patrons. It was awful. So if you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. Just know that it was disturbing. Evan Peters did an amazing job with the acting. He plays Jeffrey, and he did an excellent job. And I'll just tell you that Jeffrey was murdered in prison. So his crimes, he got arrested for his crimes, but he was murdered by an inmate in prison. So if you want to watch more about it, this series is on Netflix, and I found it to be very interesting but very disturbing. There are a lot of true crime type channels on YouTube, and some people who've gone into even more details. If you want details, I couldn't handle too many details. Seriously, that's all I needed to know. It's very disturbing. So that's my vlog for today. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.